everybody called me Risky, but right now I'm going by my name, you know, Risky Forever. You know what I mean? Because I feel like, you know, from the shit that I did way back in the day, you know, it came up to, you know, to 2000. Well, basically everything I did from 96, I'm still rocking with it in 2000, so it's historic. So I just changed my moniker from Risky to Risky Forever. So I'm the guy that's responsible for mostly all the artwork that came off of Death Row, with the exception of Doggy Style and the Dog Food album. I had my hand on every album release so far as like artwork from the time that I was there, and I think one album after the time that I left. I met Pac through Suge. Suge introduced me to Tupac. I had a play cousin named Gina. She lived in the neighborhood. She kind of, you know, she knew all of them. So she knew I used to draw, so I had a portfolio that had a lot of paintings and drawings of Tupac I did, because I was really up on Tupac from the movie Juice, from the album Tupacalypse Now, from the Me Against the World album. So I I was a big Pac head. So when Death Row came to the neighborhood, she basically borrowed my portfolio to take it over to Suge to show him. Suge liked the portfolio. So he looked at the portfolio, and then he told her to get me to bring me for a meeting to his house when he stayed. When he had another house that he was at in the neighborhood, and he wanted me to come over to a meeting at the house. But when I got to the house, he was having another bigger meeting, so I couldn't sit down with him at that time. I mean, he did a lot of industry meetings at the house too in Compton, you know. So, as a matter of fact, I think he was meeting with MC Hammer. He had a meeting with MC Hammer there, and he couldn't take my meeting. So, maybe it was about a week later, I worked at the Compton swap meet, but I had moved out of the Compton swap meet with my boy Clifford Morris. He started another airbrush shop across the street from the Compton swap meet in a 2-story building in a little, what do they call them? Basically like a corner mall or whatever. He started it there, and I was working with him. And one day I was leaving out, and I noticed the car carrier full of 6'4" Chevys, and I was wondering what's going on? You know what I mean? What's gonna happen? But nobody ever gave an idea or knew what exactly was going on. And I thought it was probably just a regular little label from around the neighborhood or from around Compton that was getting ready to shoot a video. But within that time, I ran an errand for him way to Orange County. And when I came back, it was a big crowd of people. And I saw a couple of my friends from my neighborhood, and I asked them what was going on. And they told me that Tupac was over there and they were shooting a video for California Love. So I made my way over there and I saw Suge. So Suge had a big line of people was standing around him, and I was like, let me give it a minute, you know what I mean, before I go up and talk to him, because I felt like he had so many people by him that if I would have walked up to him and tried to talk to him, he would have just told me what I wanted to hear to blow me off real fast. So I didn't want to feel like that. So what I did was I stood right there and I waited till it was the last person that talked to him. And when he was getting ready to walk away, I stopped him and I told him who I was. And he asked me, did I have my same portfolio? And I told him, yeah, the portfolio was across the street. So he was like, go get it. So I just pleaded with him. I was like, hey, you're not going to leave, is you? Like, I don't want to, I don't want to miss out if, I don't want you to leave. So he was basically telling me like, hey, go get your book. I'm going to be right here. I ain't going to move. So I took off running across the street to the 2-story building. I grabbed my portfolio and I ran back. By the time I ran back, he was still standing there. So I walked up to him and I told him, hey, here go the book right here. So I gave him the book. He flipped a couple of pages and he told me to walk with him. So when I walked with him, he walked me up to a van. He tapped on the door and he opened up the door, and Tupac was in there with about 5 chicks. So he told Tupac to come out, and he told Tupac, well, this is the little homie from the neighborhood. He draw. You know what I mean? I want you to look at his work and see if we can use him for something. So Tupac started going through my portfolio, and I'm gonna say maybe about 3 weeks after that, I was on Death Row. My first project was supposed to be something for the America's Most Wanted single with him and Snoop, but I didn't do that. I ended up working on an insert for All Eyes on Me with my homeboy Hen Dog, rest in peace. But when he looked through my portfolio, before I even got to Death Row, I was in the neighborhood, I didn't know nothing about no bad boy beefs. I didn't know nothing about no Death Row bad boy beefs. I didn't know nothing about no Tupac, Biggie beefs, none of that. I was a Notorious Big fan. I was up on Juicy and all of that in the neighborhood. So I had a portrait of Biggie that I painted that was a picture in my book also. So when he saw that picture of Biggie, he put his 2 fingers together like a gun and he cocked it and he said, boom, boom, what did you draw him for? And I just looked at him And I told him, hey, you know, it's just art. You know, I didn't want to tell him I was a fan of Biggie because I seen what it was. I didn't want that to cost me my chance to get on death row, because that was like one of my dreams when I started seeing, you know, death row so close to my neighborhood. I kept telling myself every day that I was going to get on. I just didn't know how. And this was an opportunity right there. So I didn't want to crumble that. I was in the office. We had just moved to 9171 Wilshire Boulevard from 8200. When we stayed at 8200 Wilshire Boulevard, no, 8200, I'm sorry, that's my bad. We stayed at 109, we were at 10900 Wilshire Boulevard when I first got there at Murdoch Plaza, and we were right across the hall from Interscope. During that time, we had just moved to 9171 Wilshire Boulevard. That was in Beverly Hills. And at this time, I had my own, like, art department. Me and Hendog, we had our art department, and we picked our art department to be way in the back. It was like the office was like, that shit seemed like a half a mile long from east to west. So everybody would travel east to west, and everybody had different offices on each side, but the art department was kind of wide open, and I had another office at the end that I used to be in, and we chose for our office to be way in the back because a lot of times we used to smoke weed back there, you know what I mean? And they wouldn't care. They'd be like, go smoke you some bud, get your creative thought together, and get some shit popping. So one day I was in the back, and Norris had called, Norris Anderson, right back then, he was the general manager at Death Row. He had screamed down the hall, "Risky!" So he called me, and I walked down there like, what's going on? And he was like, I need you to do something. Like, you're not even gonna believe what it is. And I'm like, what? Like, you know what I mean? What is it you need me to do? He was like, I just got a call from Suge. You know, we want you to draw a picture with Tupac on the cross. And I was like, what? Tupac on the cross? And he was like, yeah, we want you to put him on the cross. As a matter of fact, we need you to get together and put something together ASAP because we got a meeting tonight at Gladstone's. The staff meeting, the office meeting with the studio and the office, and we need you to put something together so they can be able to see what it looked like. So that was the first time I had heard about, you know, doing it. So I went and I put something together that night, and I took it to the meeting at Gladstone. You know, I was in the studio with him when I took him to, actually, I went down to take him the Macavelli canvas drawing. Before it had a cross on there, it was basically an outline of what he wanted, and I took it down there, me and my boy Hendog, we took it down there to Can-Am Studios for him to see it for the first time, because I had made a mock-up cover. He had already seen a mock-up cover, but now I was taking him the actual artwork, but it was a cross there, but it wasn't no detail in the cross. So it was like, the picture was done, but the cross was still blank, you know what I mean? And I took that over to him, and he liked the way that I was going with it. So during that time, he was recording I think he was recording for the Macavelli album. He was recording all the time. So I don't know what project he was recording for, because after he passed, I knew he had recorded for, what was it called? He was doing a record, One Nation. He was doing that record. And then I knew afterwards that he had the Macavelli album, but then he had so much other stuff too. I mean, I had a couple of conversations with him, but my last conversation was with him was September the 6th, 1996, when I turned him into artwork. And he was thrilled with the artwork that I did for him. And he was basically telling me like, yo, we're gonna give you an art show. You know, I want you to start painting pictures for my house. I got you, I'm finna host this. Like, you know what I mean? Get it together. Like, make, you know, I'm about to help you get up there. You know, that was the last conversation I had with him, you know, and all I did was look forward to making it back from Las Vegas to be able to put that into reality. And unfortunately, you know, he didn't make it back. This is a crazy story. This is an untold story. So I'm gonna tell this story right here. This is gonna be one story because I didn't write about this in my book. We had an interview. I had went with George Price to the studio. George Price used to have me go with him to the studio a lot of times because back then I was kind of big, you know what I mean? So he felt like, you know, if I went to the studio with him, a lot of the artists used to fuck with Papa G. You feel me? They used to do fucked up shit to him. So he felt like if I went to the studio with him, that I could be like that person to get him to leave him the fuck alone. You know what I mean? Because he'll feel like, you know what I mean, he had somebody with him that had his back. So he took me with him to Can-Am Studios, and we went up to Can-Am because Snoop had just released the Dogfather album. So BRE wanted to do an interview with Snoop regarding the Dogfather album. So we were in the studio and we were listening to a couple of tracks from the Dogfather. I wish I knew the reporter's name that was there at the time, but he sat in with us. And before that album, before we can get into too many songs, Pac came into the studio. So Pac kind of like bombed the interview, you know what I mean? He came in.
He bombed Snoop's interview?
He bombed Snoop's interview. He came in. He started reciting songs from Macavelli, you know what I mean? And it was just like we forgot all about what Snoop had going on. Now we wanted to, hear what Pac had going on. And he kind of recited a couple of songs he had coming out on the new Macavelli album. So that was crazy right there, because that was like actually the first time I saw him like face to face performing some stuff like right in front of my face, you know what I mean? So it was like, we all were like caught up, with just the lyrics, the shit he was saying, you know what I mean, and what he was, and the purpose behind what he was getting ready to do, because he was explaining all of that to us.
You remember anything, any detail? I know it's a long time ago.
I just know he had this cold diss. It came out because he was talking about Lauryn Hill. He was talking about
dissing him?
Yeah, he was dissing him. He was dissing De La Soul. Them records made it out, during the Macavelli bootlegs that end up dropping, but it didn't make the album. And that, for me, remembering that song when he recited, that was one of the songs that I wanted to hear on the album, but I never heard that song on the album. It didn't make that cut.
Did Snoop feel some type of way when he did that?
If he felt some type of way, he didn't show it to us. You know what I mean? But I'm pretty sure that he felt some type of way. We in his interview, and he come in with his record. So I can't really speak on how Snoop felt, but I just know at the time, I just felt like that was kind of a crazy move. You know what I mean? We in here doing this interview right here, and then you come in talking about your record. And at that time, I mean, Snoop was big. He was one of the people that made the label pop the way it popped. But at that time, if you really think about it, and there ain't no disrespect to Snoop, but if you really think about it, in '96, when Pac came out, it was like Death Row was Pac label. You know what I mean?
I don't think he never was awake. I don't recall him ever being awake, but I recall him, being aware. He was aware. Okay. He was aware that we were in the room. They kept him sedated. And if he did certain things, they would, put him under a little more. And certain people walking in the room, he shook more. And he would, shake and, I guess, know that we're in the room. They would come in and kind of calm him down a little bit. But he was never woke looking at us. He was on life support, or he was on respirators and things like that. I'm not quite sure.
Drayster, Biggie knockout era, and then probably fast forward it all the way to when they heard that Eazy-E was dying. These guys have been in the business for over 30 years. They're going to have to cover a lot of fucking time in 2 hours or less than 2 hours. So it's going to transgress